Yesterday, I attended a Psychedelics event for healing, social change and spiritual exploration, held in this lovely venue off Cold Harbour Lane on Market Row. So if you're looking for a venue to do an event, this is it.
Be in a new place where I wouldn't need to go to bread and butter for stress, where I could just feel stress. And how I knew it finally worked was we came back from Breaking Convention and we got some news about my mum, that my mum had cancer. And I got the news and it was really interesting. It was like it came over me, and then the old feeling that would start thinking, oh, isn't the kitchen interesting? Kind of half started and then stopped, because that thing to need to consume, to cope, was finally gone. So I went to my altar and I was just like, I'm sad Mum's sick, but I'm so happy that I know I've moved on from this. And then once again with the Mycelium Network, it happened at a time when Sister Acacea's here, and her knowledge of what one has to do about cancer is just off the chart. So it's just been brilliant to watch the video that you did and write down all these herbs, go and buy them, have some extra chats with Acacea, and it's just like, yeah, what will be, and the medicine always, always, always is the one. So thank you very much for coming.
I
just want to say thank you. You know, it takes a lot for you guys to be here and have the courage to come and sit and listen to a talk about mushroom technology. You know, and so I applaud all of you that are sitting in the audience right now that are considering working with the mushroom and considering becoming more serious about your practice, that you have a lot more bravery than you can ever understand. Many teachers, and foremost, I want to give honor to the great Ahati Kalindi Igi, because he is the reason why this is even possible. For me to speak on it, and then also for this event, and also for me and Baba Mudu and Darren and Mama Quaya to be here in front of you. And the foremost lesson he taught me, I was on the phone with him one day and he said, you ever come across any sorcery? And I was like, I don't know sorcery. He was like, well, I want to know, can you teach me sorcery? He's like, just starts laughing. I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. And then it really took me a long time to take myself seriously, because so many times I had lost my way and I didn't believe in my ability to carry on forward. The mushroom kept grounding me in the foundation of my core intelligence, the laws of Ma'at, the quintessential teachings, the 7 grandfather teachings, the 8 pillar teachings of Tibetan Buddhism. I had a foundation that was imbued in me from a very young age. And the mushroom let me edit that foundation. Also learn, to toss some things out that weren't really meant to be there for me, that weren't for my highest good. And I realized I agreed to this path before I was born. I had a trip one day where I was around probably 10 grams, I want to say 12 grams, actually 12 grams of Ecuadorian mushrooms. And they're pretty strong. And I was sitting in the living room with my partner, and then I had a co-partner at the time. We were sitting in the living room, and I just started fading. And I was like, okay, here comes the small death. Yep. And, that small death can seem so big at the time. And you keep reaching out, and like, help me, I'm falling. I'm falling, and I can't get back up. And for me, I was going, I was dying in the trip. And so I lay down, and the way I hit my head in the same spot where I cracked my skull on the ice when I was 5 years old. And I remember standing above my body and telling myself, get up. And in that moment, in that trip, it brought up those memories I had repressed from that time period where I didn't know, people have debunked near-death experience. I don't care what you say. I had a vision. And I haven't stopped having visions since that first time.
That's right.
And for me, I walk on one side, I walk with the dead and I walk with the living.
That's right.
And so for me, it's important and imperative that I be a messenger from that other side and share what it is that the ancestors want to come through me. And also the deities. I have, in that same trip, no, don't want to get distracted from saying it, I saw my parents. I saw that I'd chosen my parents for a reason. I saw that I was going to be doing this, which I didn't understand what this was. I saw myself speaking. I saw my partners. I saw eventually the fall of one partner and the rising of another partner. And I saw that my whole life was already over. And I was sitting in that ego death, and then going back towards all the other times I had died before, and then conquering my fear of death. Going back to when I was in the ice age and I was frozen solid with my stone still in my hand. I went back to before the ice age. I went back to another dimension where I died then. I was like, oh, well, I guess I can't die. And it's just these experiences at high dose that keep teaching you over and over and over again that if you're going to be here, then you better be here in some sort of alignment with your own self, what you said you were going to come here to do. And for me, that means utilizing the mushroom as a companion. Just like you wouldn't go and maybe have sex with someone you don't have a spiritual connection to, if you haven't built a defined spiritual connection with the psilocybin mushroom, then you cannot expect to be intimate about the vulnerable details of your life. There are things that you don't want to see. There are energies that you don't want to be brought up. And until you've built that communication channel to say, okay, I'm going to listen to your guidance. It's a mushroom. It doesn't have a reason to lie to you. And just like Mama Akua said, it's not going to give you any homework that you can't handle. It's just a matter of you being courageous enough to stand in the discomfort of uncertainty and be victorious over the harbingers of doubt and of death and of disease and fear. You know, we have 5 poisons in Tibetan Buddhism, and it's really cultivating that everyday practice that has kept me completely stable. Because if I were to tell you, if you were a fly on the wall watching me like a video camera, like candid camera, you'd be like, oh no, there she goes again. She went left. You know, one of my teachers who was a Heyoka, he said, you should choose the hardest possible decision for you at every possible juncture point, because every prayer and every thought is an action, is a prayer cast. And so when I stepped into the realm of Tibetan Buddhism, I had to also realize that when I took refuge in my highest self, in my inner guru, and Vajraguru and Vajradhara, when I took refuge in my highest self, my words had power. And when my words had power, I had to become responsible for all the other BS that I had said out loud that had left me in bad situations. And also responsible for my bigger prayers, my great prayers, which have to do with all of humanity itself. And to realize that it's not about trying to be the superhero who's trying to change everything for everybody, but it's like one drop of water. And if enough people start dropping drops of water, it's a rainstorm. And it's going to wash away a lot of the stuff that we see in this reality. We have aspirations for a golden age, aspiration prayers. And when you work with the psilocybin mushroom, you can aspire to greatness beyond your wildest dreams. But it's to not be attached to that. It's to focus on the impermanence, because everything's going to change. If you're uncomfortable right now, you think you're going to be comfortable when stuff starts changing. You're not. 20 years from now, I heard a message on Instagram that said, 20 years from this moment, you are going to wish that you had the same level of health and you were the same age that you are exactly right now. So in Tibetan Buddhism, we do a practice that's focusing on right now and really grounding yourself in that infinity inside of a moment, opening up the 0 point and then discovering your own self on a higher level. It's a massive deconstruction of self. You must release your attachment to who you thought you were, who you thought you were going to be with, what you thought you were going to do, because the spoken word has already started sorting things out. It's just you got to figure out why you said what you said about your life, and then why you need to go through those lessons. And then once you come to terms with that, it's no longer about victimhood. It's no longer about she did this to me and she broke my heart and When I was 28, I did the same thing, and it's not the old stories. Those stories start breaking down, and you start realizing that behind the scenes, there was only you. There was only you and your highest self orchestrating all of these different sorts of experiences for you, so that while you're here on earth, you could start behaving in a way that was compassionate to all living beings, because now you know what it feels like when you're the other way around, when you aren't practicing compassion, when you aren't practicing kindness, when you aren't being present, when you're not giving yourself the kind of love you deserve. Then you look for everybody else to solve that for you, but the truth is, it's not their responsibility at all.
Oil and all the key ingredients, that's all part of the journey, that's all part of you starting to build this relationship consciously. So I'm just saying that to say that I went on this journey, went on this path that I encourage people to go on, simply because it was the instructions that I was given by Baba. My instructions by him, the initial ones that were repeated over and over again, regardless of what questions I was asking, was this: go home, grow mushrooms, take mushrooms, and come speak to me afterwards. And anytime I go back to him, whatever query it may be, it's like, you know what you need to do, innit? Take more mushrooms. So if you don't have any in stock, grow some, eat some, and then come and see me afterwards. And it got to the point where I realised that I didn't need to go and see him as much as I thought I needed to go see him. Because what he was doing was providing me with the pathway of me just being comfortable in my own skin, making my own decisions in this place and space, and building this relationship. Like he would say, why are you going to keep coming to me when you can go to source? There's, so there's pathways, and not everybody's ready to go to source, and sometimes you need reflections that look like you, or maybe not, but just to be a reinforcement. So, moving forward, I eventually got into that place and space. That's what I encourage people to do. And after partaking in my very first psilocybin experience, I knew exactly what he was doing and what he was here for. It just made too much sense. And that was when I was like, yo, you can't be out here by yourself doing this work, in this ends, at least not in my ends, not in London, not in the UK, by yourself, to know that you've been doing this for over 30 plus years, like trying to wake up our people, like people full stop, but our people. And we've been like, not feeling this because of the narrative, because of the teachings that we've been given, and you didn't stop. I got you in it, I got your back, I'm on it. So anytime you come to the UK, let me be a problem. And that's how we got into the Breaking Convention, if I be honest. We became a problem. Because we realised what was going on in other places in space. We were like, yeah, this ain't right. And if you guys are talking about diversity and your tree huggers and love and peace and harmony and all this type of stuff, rainbow colours, like what's going on? Okay, so with that said, after I had my first experience, I realised what support I needed within myself, what support I could give others that are on this path. But the main thing I realised, and I clocked, was like, yo, my family need this. Like, my immediate family need this. Because it was revealing things to me about myself and my immediate family. Even things that I wasn't privy to about my immediate family. Be honest, things that I didn't even want to know about. It's revealing stuff. I was like, yo, why you keep bringing this up in my world? This is going to be my world, baby. And you're bringing me up things about my mother and my grandmother and my aunties, a lot about the females in my family. Like, these are things, conversations that I hadn't even had with them up until this point. So the fact that it was just revealing to me that, yo, the more you do the work, there's a butterfly effect. And that's what some of the elders teach about, like, you're doing the work on behalf of your family. Not everyone in your family needs to do this. That's what I wanted at first. I want everybody to do it. Everyone's got to get it. Yeah. But then I realised, no, everyone doesn't have to. Like, just got to be examples, and those who it's for, they will get it, and all the rest of it. So I realised, because this session today and in general what I've been talking about is healing the hood with mushrooms. And I've had people around me say, yo, do you think the hood is really ready for this? And I always reply by saying, is the hood ready for crack cocaine, heroin, guns, knives, because all those things are in the hood already, and they're floating about, and we're very much comfortable with these things. So I'm not saying it's for everybody, as much as I would want everybody to get it, but at the same time, we shouldn't put up barriers where we could potentially lose another generation. So with that said, I started to do my work. I realised that not only did I need it, my family needed it. Not only did my family need it, my brethren needed it. Or my partners in crime, they needed it. And I roll around with people who will consider, the hard to reach, you know what I'm saying? The bad boys, the gangsters, all these terminologies that are used. And without giving names or giving people up, what we can say is 15 years later, 12 to 15 years later, we've got testimony after testimony after testimony of young people, boys, girls in the hood that are changing, taking a new leaf, just like Akua was saying, with her son, perfect example being. And I can give testimonies of some of the biggest, strongest, toughest, at least in their own minds, people that have started this journey now, have partaken in this technology and have also turned a new leaf, as we would say. I always like to give two quotes. One of them was one of my youngers, we would say, who started this journey. He's been studying my work for years in general, just in the community, and as he made his transition, he's like, yo, Spring, I realise I'm a pussy, yo. That's why I've not wanted to do mushrooms, because I'm scared. He started being honest with me. I'm like, cool, I appreciate your honesty. He goes, but I think now's the time for me to become a man. And this was a 30-plus-year-old man, I think it's time for me. And I said, like, I relate, bro, because it was only still I started working with this technology that I realised that I wasn't a man, not what I thought I was, at least. Society's version of it, but as far as digging deep and doing that work. And then on his first encounter working with, sitting with him, working with him through the technology, he was like, so Spring. So my last name's Spring. He was like, Spring. Yo, Spring. I'm like, yeah. Because these mushrooms are trying to make me cry, innit? I feel like these mushrooms are trying to make me cry. So I was like, bro, it's like, God, I'm crying, innit? I ain't gonna tell nobody. Do what you gotta do. And he had a session, at least an hour of his time just crying, man, just doing his thing, whatever he was going through, went through his motions, and he came out of that and he looked at me and goes, bro, I've not felt this peaceful since I was 18 months years old. And he was aware of what happened, or something happened while he was 18 months years old that triggered him not having as much peace as he used to have. And he remembered that day, he was like, yo bro, today just been a mad day, problems with the missus, shit at work, I don't know if this is the type of day that you should be doing mushrooms. I'm like, yo, there's no better day than the present, but let's go for it, I'm here, I've got your back. So we went through it, and he went through that experience, and I've got him plus many others that give testimony after testimony to say that, yo man, this mushroom shit really works. And for those of us who think it isn't ready for the hood, it really is. Yeah. I'm saying that is what we need. And that's why I've spent years in teaching and sharing that this is why the indigenous African approach to psychedelics, which was the first approach, still works. Yes. So all this latest research that's being done, as far as, the clinical trials and all this type of stuff, that's really great, because it allows us to have a narrative, at least in the wider community, where we can start to have mature conversations. But if we don't go back to source, like I was taught, if you don't go back to source, you would not know where and how you may fit into this, coming from where I come from. So with that said, that's why myself and others are doing the work, I guess, just to make sure that there's people, because just like when I saw Baba Kalinda, it's like, yo, this guy looks like me, speaks my language, just resonates. It makes a big difference. I know to some people it's like, what difference would it make? It's just a nut. It's like, no, it's a big difference. And especially when it's like such a taboo subject in our community still to this day. So anyway, I'm just saying that to say that we've got testimony after testimony of young people, old people. I mean, I can put it out there now, man. I've got my brothers, my sisters, my mum doing all this shit, and they were all people telling me, be careful, what you're getting into. They've all seen and can bear witness to the benefits of this. So then, because I've seen that initial vision that I received, which was sort your shit out, your own neighborhood, then you can start working on your initial neighborhood, which is your household, and then we can start looking at the wider community. And we've got to that point where I feel comfortable, like we can really take this to the wider community after all of these years of doing this. So with that said, on a fast track to the here and now, all the latest research, all these things that are happening, and then you've got, for people who might not be privy to it, like these amazing retreats happening. There's some amazing retreats happening in Jamaica. Anybody heard of Jamaica? Yeah. All right, everybody's heard of Jamaica, but not many people know about the relationship Jamaica has with mushrooms. In particular, the fact that it's not being criminalized on the island, which then gives some people the idea that they must just head straight there. That's where you need to go, innit? Because there's no laws and you can do what you want. And I'm like, no, you need to be a bit more, especially in the so-called woke, conscious psychedelic community that we're meant to be. And I see so much actions. Again, I'm not here to judge, but I see many actions that just don't fit. Yeah, just don't fit the description of what I'm supposed to be seeing or hearing from conscious and woke people. So for me, it feels like tobacco, the gold rush, diamond rush, when people spot and see things like over there, let's just go and pillage. Let's just go and pillage and do what we do, because like we're good at that. So there's loads of people that are like down to Jamaica basically. And I'm not Jamaican. People just keep saying, oh, you're in Jamaica a lot, you spend a lot of time there. I keep saying like, oh, you're just on the beach having fun. Yeah, I'm like, yeah. Because that's what the mushrooms are permitted, that I'm allowed to find the balance. Yeah. And I do want to be on the beach scratching my arse 24/7. I definitely know I wasn't built to have a 9-to-5 job. I've never had a 9-to-5 job, so I definitely know I wasn't built to have one. So with that said, like, what am I here for? And the more that it's revealed to me that, yes, we are just meant to be chilling and billing. That's what we're meant to do, like, all this idea of working and, like, we've been mucked off, innit? Like, someone's mucked us off, yeah? So like, the closer I can get back to that, the better for me. I can't speak for you lot, but I definitely know for me, that makes sense. So the fact that I've been and I've seen going on what's been going on as far as, you know, people just taking advantage, I can assure you that there's many Americans, Canadians and British people over there taking full advantage. Yes. They can afford £7,000 to £10,000 / dollars / euros for a 5, 6, 7 day retreat where you're going to get, you know, your 5 grams, 7 grams a month. Well, first you're going to get like 1.5, then you're going to get 3.5, then they're going to give you a 5 to 7 gram experience, and then there's going to have somebody they're basically going to just tell you it's going to be alright. They rub you on the back a few times and they give you some healing modalities. I'm not knocking it, but I'm just fast tracking you through it all, where I'm just saying that when you come out the other end, this is what Spirit said to me. Okay, so when you arrived where you are, which is in the UK, so I'm first generation born in the UK, I'm just letting you know. All right, I'm gonna go back to move forward. This is how the revelation came. So I was basically, 3 years ago, Baba made the transition on April the 10th. 9 days later, my father made the transition on April the 19th, bicycle day, ironically. And I remember that day very clearly because I do Funky Forest Fridays. Anybody want to join me one day to a Funky Forest Friday? Every Friday we go to the forest, we play funk music, and we take funky. That's what we do. But it's nice weather anyway. But because I was in this period of 9 days, not that I knew at the time, but on that 10th, I was like, yo man, I was going, and it was lockdown, so I was pretty much going to the forest every day. Jump on my bike, go forest. So it was ironic that on April the 19th that year, I had just finished my Forest Friday. I was on my bike, chilling, and I got a call from my brother, and he was like, yo, Dad's passed. I'm like, okay. Shit. Anyway, just like Akua said, I was able to process that differently than I would have thought I would have as well, without getting too much into it. What I did know is I was spending even more time in the forest now. And then I went to the forest and I got my downloads. And the downloads was as simple as this: you got to go to Jamaica. Again, I went in there to go talk up with my dad, maybe connect with Baba. It was that. It was all I kept on getting was this fruit machine kind of concept, and every single time the winner was Jamaica. It was like a fruit machine just kept showing me Jamaica. I'm like, yeah, but what else? And what he was trying to reveal to me, which he did, and I followed it through, and just like many people shouldn't do, you know, like when you take psychedelics, you don't impulsively act upon it. Definitely don't pick up the phone there and then and do things. So I'm wise enough not to do that anymore. I've done that a few times with scared people. And you can say, yeah, I don't want to do the work because it's illegal. You know, because there's a legality side of it as well, people need to be aware of. And then people say, I want to do it, but look, it's not really nice here. I want to do it somewhere that's a bit more conducive. So some reason or another, Jamaica has revealed itself to us and reminded us that we can go back through those portals and do the healing work. So without getting into all the epigenetics and all the trauma and all the stuff that we've inherited and carry with us, there's work that we could do to lighten our load. So with that said, that's why we're in Jamaica. That's what we're doing. I'm supported by other people on the island. Eventually we'll be bringing my brothers and sisters and allies over there to do the work. So for those of us that want to do it in more conducive environments, can actually do that. And at the same time, I'm letting you know that it's not light work in the sense of, yeah, it's light work, but it's not light, it's heavy. And you may, just like many of us who have been there and seen it, you may see those ships arrive that dropped us off, and you may need to send them back to where they come from, because that's how we do the work. So like we said, it's a heavy load, but that's just me here to share with you that we can heal the hood through mushrooms. We can do it right here in this concrete jungle. Yeah. I can assure you that. But if for whatever reason you feel like, yo, I need to kind of be in a more conducive environment, then reach out. But please don't spend all them thousands of dollars. Don't go to all them big boys that are on the island. Come see people like me. I'm not actually doing the work on the island, but I can point you in the right direction at least of people who are on the ground where the healing grows from to do that healing work. And they're really about it. So with that said, that's what I have to bring and share with you today. My name's Darren Springer, also known as Darren LeBaron. Really appreciate my people.
Brother Darren, let's give him another hand, because well, we'll make it official. We'll keep it moving. Greetings, family. How you doing? My name is Baba Murubaki. It's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, I'm just super happy to be here. Like Darren said, this is a refreshing, organic, just dope, really dope vibe. Just a little bit about me. I always start off just like we all do, recognizing our lineage. We were all students and influenced by the great Ahati Kalina Ii. And if you don't know about him, I really encourage you to get to know about him. So I'll just give you a little background how I got started. I was a young blood in the streets of Detroit, actually pushing the envelope, fighting for liberation and change. And everything from collecting votes to what we call non-civil disobedience, giving drama to those who deserved it. But I found myself, an elder approached me once and he said, well, look, if you're gonna continue doing this work, there's some training you need, and there's a brother I need you to meet. And that's how I met Baba Kalindi. And at first, if anybody knew Kalindi, he was a very quiet, very stoic brother. And I didn't know much about him. I just knew that he was not to be trifled with, and he was a serious freedom fighter. So I began training under him in the traditional African martial arts system of Ahasaki through Tamarian Institute. Why that's important is because at the time, this was about 1998, and this was a time in which politically things were hard for our people. Things stay hot for our people. But in particular, he was being admonished and castigated because people believed there was no such thing as African martial arts. And so right. And so part of our duty was not only to prove it historically, but some of will prove it on the mat. And Baba Kalindi and some of my older OGs did that proficiently to the point in which we developed what we call the African Martial Arts League in the United States. And it actually extended internationally. So we have a brother, y'all may know of Guru Richard Dubois. He was part of this league. And what we were about was just, once again, embracing the tradition of martial science in our community. The idea that as humans, as all humans, we had systems of self-defense and protection. Now at this time, of course, just like most of the world, there's a chauvinism that exists. And the chauvinism is that African people were primitive people. In fact, African people never produced anything worthwhile, which is the opposite is the truth. And so, Tamarian Institute, per Ansar, our duty was to bring back and to lift up the traditions of our ancestors. Those things that people forgot about, the cultural amnesia that not only black people suffer, but humanity suffers. So one of the times I was asking Baba Kalindi, I said, well, what's your philosophy, what's your approach? He said, my philosophy is that of the Tamarian philosophy. And I asked him about that. He says, that existed before the Great Flood. That existed at a time when there was another expression of humanity, one which we are still trying to reach and attain. And when I did my research, at first I thought, okay, what is he talking about? But as I did my deep research, I found that there was an ancient epic, and that many of these ancient truths about this ancient epic, few of them remain, but there were still clues. And so his life was dedicated toward searching down those truths, those mysteries. And so through Tamarian Institute, our job was to not only find them, but to teach them, learn them, teach them, and resurrect them. So I was lucky enough to carry his bags. I was lucky enough to go wherever he went. As we were learning martial arts though, of course you're young, bravado, you want to test yourself. So I said, okay, Baba, how good am I? He says, keep training. That's what he would always say. Train some more. How good are you? Keep training. Then I said, well, Baba, when do we get our test? He says, test? I said, yeah, don't we get a belt or something? He said, no, because traditional martial arts don't do belts. No. In the traditional aspect, you would get a belt with white cloth, but it'll only come black through blood, sweat, and tears and dirt. But it wasn't like somebody giving you a black belt. No, you only earned it through dedicated focus consistently. So I said, well, Baba, when does my test come? He said, it's coming soon. I said, well, what is the test? He said, you gotta die. I was like, I gotta die? What are you talking about? And he just left it very cryptic. For the next year, I peppered him. I said, well, what do you mean? What are you talking about? I gotta die, you gotta die. So one day he said, well, meet me at this address. And so me and my brother Brad, we excited. It's like, are we gonna die? Shit. We don't know what to expect. So we show up at this elder's house named Mr. Johnson. Around the table is a biologist, an astrologer, an engineer, a doctor, Kalindi. And I'm like, look at this blend of people. It was like a scene on the Matrix or something. And they just sitting there sipping tea. And then Baba gives me a bag and says, go over here and start grinding rice. So I start grinding rice while I'm eavesdropping. They're talking about particle dimensions and dimensions, multifaceted dimensions, and all of these quark particles. And I'm half ear hustling, but I'm grinding the rice. I'm doing as he tells me. He has me pack the jars. And so I sit at the table and I just listen. And they're going through all of these various subjects: ancient history, quantum physics, engineering, mathematics, biology. And I'm just sitting here like, this is amazing. So after the end of the conversation, we pack up the jars and we leave. And so I'm mystified. I'm thinking that the jars themselves were the mushrooms. So I'm like, okay, what do we do now? He said, come back next Sunday. Showed up next Sunday. I said, all right, what are we doing now? He said, grind the rice. And this process continued for a year and a half, where he wouldn't tell me anything. He just said, grind the rice. What he was teaching me was the old school PF Tech, but he was making sure I knew it. So one day after the end of the meeting, he gave me a jar. He said, take this. He gave me a pack of jars. He said, take this home, put it under your bed. I did it. And he instructed me step by step on how to harvest. And once I harvested my batch, he said, now it's time. And so then he instructed me to go ahead and start working with my brothers. So I had to start initiating folks. Well, this is after I went through it by myself. Then you got other people. We're initiating each other. We're taking each other through. So then I asked Ahati, I said, so what is this about? He says, this is preparation for the war. I said, what are you talking about? He said, there are realms that we are not aware of. There are battles and energies that we deal with that most people are not aware of. And this is what this work is about. And I'm like, I'm getting mystified at this point. So then as we get deeper into it, he started explaining how when we go into these realms, there are individual energies that are trying to take our spirit. Yep. And that have been. And that in fact, the globe is existing with a colonized spirit right now. And that the original offenses against the human spirit have not been resolved. And so as we got deeper, I said, so what are we supposed to do? He said, you're supposed to go deeper in there and engage those energies. I'm like, engage them how? He said, you'll find out. Just keep going and develop power. So at this point, he has me reading Tibetan Book of the Dead, Egyptian Coming Forth by Day, the 42 Laws of Ma'at, the Emerald Tablet, the Shabaka Stone, all of these ancient traditional aspects that came out of Africa. And so the more I got an understanding, the more I realized what this work was. And so then, as you see now, I've been out here trying to get this work into people's hands as much as possible. We'll end up in Africa. But the whole goal was we were going to get source knowledge of this information. And so as this thing grew, we started to appeal to our community, but our people had been totally culturally brainwashed. And when I say our people, I'm talking about everyday people. I'm talking about black people, black and brown people, and I'm talking about the average individual. Because at this point, this understanding was very much still held in those academic societies or those individuals who had the money that can afford access to it. Yes, sir. And so at this point, this is when we realized we need to make this accessible to everyone. Because this thing is more than just in just a little bit of landscape understanding. Right now what's being proffered is what we call the psychedelic lightweight version. Because in traditional societies, this wasn't just a love and light tool. No, this was a tool for love and light, but it was also a tool for defense. And so as we studied our history, we realized that the first aspect of all human societies that were captured was our access to this divine, our access to these unseen realms, because this is where we developed our relationship with the universe one-on-one, was castigated with the black community a certain way. And unfortunately, too many of our allies and brothers and sisters in other communities did what? Turned their backs. They turned their backs. They enjoyed the wonderful access to psychedelics, but turned their backs on the idea of this war on drugs, this war on human consciousness. And so our people began to take taboos. Everyday people began to take taboos. Those are drugs. Those will get you killed. I don't want to get addicted. And so in order for us to actually make this thing legit, we had to kick the doors of traditional society in. So when we first started, like Darren said, this room didn't look this varied. Many times we were the only raisins in the yogurt, as my grandmother would say. And we came across some great allies, those people who had pure heart and pure intention, and they helped open the door for us. But it took work. It took, okay, I'm gonna take this $1,200, fly to Breaking Convention, hope to get a ticket, just so I maybe meet somebody, so that we can spend another $1,200 to fly back next year and get 20 minutes to represent our folks. But this is the work. The work meant spending money out your own pocket. The work meant giving this thing away for free. The work meant staying up all night, mopping up vomit, helping to recalibrate our people's mentality, helping to reconcile broken families, having to look at the castigation of family members who thought that you were just a weirdo, right? The castigation of your own community who thought you were a new age joke dealer, right? All of this. And so in this growth and development, what we learned was that, in fact, this is a war for human consciousness.
It is.
Yes, sir. Very much so. And so this is why sometimes I say Wakanda not Woodstock, because if we get seduced by this love and light thing, all we're doing is becoming complacent with an indecent situation.
Yes, sir.
The situation that humans find themselves in are absolutely unacceptable.
Exactly.
And if you use psychedelics to make it acceptable, something's wrong. In other words, it's not designed to create a life of hardship, anger, and hatred, but it's definitely to align you to the forces of justice and righteousness. What that means is, no matter how much psychedelics you take, you're never going to reach nirvana until you address the assault on the human spirit. See, the way of the West is individualism. As long as me and mine are together,
yes, sir.
I'm fine. The hell with the rest of everybody.
Yes, sir.
Exactly.
I'll get my little community collective together and we can seal ourselves off from the problems of the world. And that's the same mentality that's led to the degradation of human spirits. And so what we do with this work is we bring in soul to the movement. Soul power, Yabo, because that's what's needed. Right now it's a celebratory spirit. It's everything will be okay. Take a damn microdose and forget about it. No. We're trying to foster a revolution in the human spirit. In other words, we can foster a revolution where we can enjoy intelligence, health, happiness. But guess what? It's not going to come free.
No, sir.
You're not going to be able to gram your way out of this. This means that in your waking hours, you have to be an active agent of change. It's not enough to just gram out and wish the best. And like Kalindi taught me, everybody in this room needs to be part of an organization. If you're not part of an organization, what are you doing? Because otherwise you're just dosing out. Let's enjoy it, but let's do it right. Do we enjoy taking it in a party? Yeah. Hell yeah, I love it. Taking it in a party, taking it with someone you plan to, engage with, to get an entanglement with on a couple of grams is a good thing. But it's also important that we go in and we work with our brothers and sisters dealing with addiction. That we're brave enough to deal with our brothers and sisters that are dealing with violent tendencies. That we're brave enough to help bring unity.
So in the break, we had the opportunity to go on a virtual mushroom trip.
But right now we're working with the artificial intelligence technology, so you just program and you just talk to AI, and then the AI designs your trip, and then you upload it to Cyber Mushroom. This way you can upload your trips like created by artificial intelligence into the Cyber Mushroom and share it with people.
Well, as in like if you're actually going on a trip?
No, you can go to a psychedelic trip and then get your insights, and then when you come back, we teach you how to use artificial intelligence and create a virtual reality experience based on it. So you don't need to have coding, programming, design skills. All you need is imagination and memory to remember your experience. And then you generate that world and then upload it to our system, and then you have it as a mushroom in that place. And then when we do that, we activate the t-shirts and then the stickers. So everybody who has a t-shirt sticker can scan it and then see the new mushroom that popped up. And then by taking that mushroom, then they put the headset on and then go down and pick up that mushroom in the ocean.
Wow.
We want to believe that mommy and daddy has us, but we'll pass that on the couch.
Thank you for your question. I would say mistaken identity. I think we saw it.
We also had the opportunity to purchase these lovely gifts from Ghana. Some of them are very unique. And if you see anything on this table that you like, get in contact with him so he doesn't have to take them back to Ghana with him when he leaves next week. After the break, we had a Q&A session on how to integrate our plant medicine journeys.
It's been fantastic and really inspirational. I've already addressed this question to Darren, so unless there's anything else, Darren, please. But my question is about integration. In particular on a talk that I attended on Wednesday, about Moody, you talked about the real work doesn't start until you get to 5. And I know from having spoken to Darren that it's very subjective, and you have to work through. It depends on the teacher, it depends on your own intentions, etc. But I speak from the perspective of somebody who is from the Caribbean via Birmingham. So I was born here, and I was talking to a lady during the break to say, I did my DNA test, and I'm 28% Nigerian and all this jazz. But the point is that I'm half Jamaican, and as Darren has said, that there's a lot of trauma for black people from the Caribbean who live in this country, and so if we're starting at 5, there's a lot of shit that's going to come up. And if you want to do the work, then you're trying to communicate with the ancestors, you're trying to deal with the trauma, and you're trying to go deep. And as Darren said, not everybody in your family, in your group of people, near ones, might be called to do this, but if you feel called to do the work, it's all well and good doing the work and putting on the rocks. I'm going to war, I'm going to do this, I'm going to not. Clearly it's a relationship with the mushroom also, but in a positive way, I want to do the work. But when you're doing the work, how do you process the trauma that you're reliving when potentially there aren't that many people doing the work? Of course, being at an event like this is somewhat like integration, but all of the reading, all of the research seems to be directed at European people.
Yes.
All of the research is about, this is what works, classical music works when you're doing that, etc. The question is, how do you process and integrate things that are coming up, given that you are advocating, not necessarily advocating, if you want to do the work, it's there for you. How do you deal with the shit when it hits the fan?
I think, like I was saying in my thing, I find the shit doesn't hit the fan if the work is really big. That's what I find. I find the medicine really, really holds you. It's really your intention is the first thing. And when you start doing ancestral work, or you find which ancestors starts coming up, we are so old. I'll tell you, the first ancestor who made contact with me is a Jamaican ancestor, and I still haven't seen her in my trips. She's in my head, and I know I will when I go high enough. Last time she was like at my shoulder side. It was like if I turned, I would see her, but somehow I never turned, so I didn't see her. She's a Jamaican ancestor, I'm Ghanaian. And then of course afterwards I thought, well, that bloody makes sense, because of course some of my ancestors went to Jamaica.
Yes.
I have Kali Ma, who is a Hindu deity. She comes every trip. I have Green Tara. She comes every trip. I have a dragon. He comes every trip. I've been an insect. I've been a rock. That was a really boring one. We're so old. We're so old, and the medicines have ways of teaching you stuff when it's really, really deep trauma. In my last trip, there was about 2 hours on the metaphysical meaning of rape. I haven't even finished sorting it out yet, because it went to some other deep shit about friction and what you create in friction, and why certain magicians and wizards and witches will deliberately do something wrong to open up another path of creation. But that's probably after 4 or 5 years of medicines before it could even, and I came out of it and I was saying to my brother, it showed me stuff and it's turning around going, I know you don't get it yet, but you will. It's so you don't have to worry. It's never going to take you to a place that when you come out of the trip, you now need to see a psychiatrist. It will never, ever, ever happen. It takes you step by step by step, building you up to greater and greater insights that are bringing you back to your real self. So don't worry about it. Just think what you want to let go of. That's what I say to people. What don't you want anymore? That's the best place to start.
And speaking toward that too is part of our duty in the waking is to remember what was lost. So what happens is that we have to destroy concepts in our mind because they'll continue to plague us. Like you said, Caribbean. You never say that ever again. Yeah. Never say that ever again. Why? Because that's when you say that, you are offending the genetics in your DNA. You know what I'm saying? So to create that healing means to reconcile that disrespect, right? And part of that means having very deep knowledge of history that's been suppressed. You get what I'm saying? Like for instance, when I first went, one of my first sessions, they were talking about witchcraft, and I had to, what were these Salem witch trials in the United States? Well, I found out it was a young West African girl named Tuba who had cured these young ladies of schizophrenia using traditional plant medicines. You see what I'm saying? So when we say things like witch, banish that from our vocabulary. Caribbean, banish that from our vocabulary, right? First world, banish that from our vocabulary. Master bedroom, we banish that from our vocabulary. Mister, as in master, we banish that from our vocabulary. You understand? And what we do is we reclaim our minds because it's word sound power, see? Right? And it's the words that you put that helps to shape your reality. So that's a big thing because you will have realities that get challenged. So yes, you need to know the proper original term of the original origin of the Jesus myth and the Osirian myth. You need to know the roots of all these things, and that's how you reconcile it, because when you go into these deep realms, they're going to show you. And the more fluent you are in these traditional and ancient histories, the better you'll be able to identify, like, that's not a monster, that's the Agungun. Okay. You get what I'm saying? And me being devoured by the spider is part of an initiation. It's not something to run from. And when you read and understand this, it becomes that much more understandable, because this is sacred art. This is a art of the Assyrian temple. This is something that our people traditionally would go through deep initiation for. But there's been so much misinformation, disinformation, lies, that we have to always get rid of that. That sky male god deity. You know, the one that doesn't like women. Get rid of that. You know what I'm saying? The concept that there's a hell, that there's another person in the ground that's there to judge us. Get rid of that. So we must deconstruct the notions of this waking reality as a myth, the myth as it is. And then when you come back, it'll be easier to understand what you experienced. So.
I first want to come to you as someone who's been in a similar situation. People who would teach me the things I need to do to defend myself against spirits that were at unrest, that would take over my physical body and do lots of crazy things in the name of revenge or vengeance or whatever pleasure they were seeking, etc. I was an open channel. Live wire. You hit the button, you eat the mushroom, and all of a sudden it comes through. And now what? You've got to maintain your sovereignty. It's learning how to take up space inside your home body from scratch. And not let anybody jump over those walls or climb through that fortress. And actually being strategic about your consciousness, because you are made of it on an infraparticle scale. There's space that spirits and energies can take up inside your body that are part of that trauma. And as Bala Muda was saying, part of it is deprogramming that. But another part of it is actually learning how to move strategically about what thought comes in, what feeling comes in when the room gets cold. What do you do? Do you get scared? How do you deal with that fear? How do you transmute it? How do you take up space inside your own body? How do you enter and you possess yourself with yourself? You don't let anybody through that wall. And when you go in again, it's been living up inside you, doing all sorts of things, saying things, your eyes turn black, all of a sudden your boyfriend's wondering that you're possessed. I'm sorry, your great granddaddy got a problem with his lineage, and he wanted to sort that out. So now what you gotta do? You gotta give offerings. You gotta do altar work. You got to self-initiate. Because there ain't nobody else's responsibility but you. You're the last one in the lineage who signed up for it, so it's your job. And your ancestors just took mushrooms and got so sick of being harassed that they bucked up and they became stronger and more powerful as a result.
That was the key word, yeah. So I'm going to go there and just bring it back home to the surface as best as I can. A big part of me, integration, is about communication. And for the most part, because a lot of us feel isolated, whatever those challenges may be, whether it's just like the first steps in taking mushrooms, or let alone going through the motions, and at the end of it you find out there's a lot of sorcery and witchcraft and stuff that you need to deal with and handle. It's about creating that network, security, the people that you can confide in. Sometimes they look like you, they come from your own family, sometimes it's just other allies that have had experiences. It's really important that when you do come out of those experiences, and like you say, it's like, who am I going to be able to talk to about it? They're just someone that can understand. And a lot of times what I've clocked in my own experiences, nobody understands. But they're just there to nod and say, yeah, boom, boom, and then you've got to walk yourself through it. Right, that's the power that you truly do have, to be able to walk yourself and see yourself through it, like the sister was saying. And just some of the basic things that I do personally is communicate with people, to share it, whether I think they get it or not. Just the fact that I've unpacked it, unloaded it somewhere else. I don't want to put it on people, but just so it's there and it's not here and holding me back. Getting my ass to the forest is really important. Just using those times, your disciplines, whether it's meditation, martial arts, all these things help. I call it kung fu in the energy. So I know that there's certain things that people are sending my way. I've learned how to qigong them out of the way. I do my qigong, I do my kung fu, and it just happens organically sometimes, or you can be very deliberate with it. And as I mentioned on Wednesday, dance. I'm just like, let's not just underestimate the power of dance. Shaking or gyrating those hips, even for the brothers, sometimes it's like, rah, like. You gotta let that go. You gotta be able to let that go, and to basically, because what I understand is you're just moving the energy around. And that's just really important, that it's not stored and stacked somewhere, and there's just different things you can do to move the energy around. And our people love to sing and dance, man. So that plays a big part in the healing work, and you moving the energy, and that's a big part of the integration for my own personal experience.
We ended the evening with some networking, because we got to get those links for the plant medicines, right? And if you'd like to learn about my plant medicine journey and how they gave me the title PIMP, Plant Medicine Pusher, click on the link in the description. The ebook is free, but all donations to my work are welcome. You can also read or listen to my novel Journey of a Sister. It's not about plant medicines, but I did channel 46,000 words. And you can watch my new fictional character Felicia Rashida's videos. Stop calling him your partner because he's giving you the D. You're dignitized. Snap out of it. We were never taught how to give or receive love in a healthy way. So we go out looking for love because we don't find it in the mirror. We developed a false self-image. Because you know what the truth is? We are love, but nobody told us to look inside for it. So my mate Cezanne says all us descendants of enslaved Africans need to return to our motherland. So I thought, okay, if I'm going to return to my motherland, I at least need to get to know what the guys there are like, right?